Hello, Bennington, and thank you for tuning into the Bennington Select Board Candidates Forum. This is Kevin Moran. I'm the executive editor of the Bennington Banner on benningtonbanner.com, and I am the moderator for tonight's forum, which is being brought to you in partnership between the Banner and the wonderful folks at Catamount Access Television Corporation, or CAT TV, serving Bennington, North Bennington, Woodford, Pownell, and Shaftesbury. The broadcast is being carried live on Comcast Channel 1085 and is being streamed on the Facebook pages of the Bennington Banner and CAT TV, where they will be available for later viewing. I thank CAT TV's executive director, Lisa Beyer, production manager, Mike Cutler, and production assistant, Jim Byers, as well as the Bennington Banner news editor, David LaChance, for their hard work in putting together the forum tonight. Your vote is your voice, so please exercise your civic duty. The Bennington Select Board election is March 2nd. It's town meeting day. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Bennington Fire Facility. Early ballots are in fact now available at the town clerk's office. Go down there or give them a call and you can get yours. Tonight we welcome 9 of the 10 candidates seeking seats on the select board. They are Chris Bates, Mike Bethel, Jim Carroll, Tina Cook, Gary Corey, Tom Haley, Colleen Harrington, Kevin Hoyt, Nancy White. A 10th candidate, Philip Gerard, was unable to attend tonight's forum. We all appreciate each candidate's willingness to participate in this forum and for choosing to run for office in order to serve our community. All candidates have been apprised of the rules, which are as follows. The purpose of the candidates forum is to give voters the opportunity to hear each candidate respond to the same specific questions and to hear those answers side by side for comparison. The candidates forum is not a debate. There'll be no follow-up questions, no rebuttals, and no discourse between candidates. Each candidate is expected to answer each specific question in the time allowed. Each candidate will have a 1-minute introductory statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. I will act as the timekeeper and will give a verbal warning when their time is expired. Candidates really should stop talking when their time is up. If candidates exceed their time limit, fail to remain quiet while others are speaking, or otherwise something else becomes disruptive, I will instruct the folks at CAT TV to mute the candidate's microphone until they're called upon next. No candidate really should have the right to take away others' time from the other candidates. And just a note to the candidates that if you're done early, earlier than your time is allotted, do let me know so that we can move on. And because there will be no opportunity for rebuttals, no candidate is to reference another candidate in a negative fashion during their responses. Candidates are asked to focus their comments on the answers to the questions. Candidates will be asked questions in alphabetical order by their last name. The first person alphabetically starts first with the introductions. The first question will start with the second person alphabetically, and so on. Each subsequent question will start in the next person in line. And depending on time, closing remarks will begin with the next person in line. So, of course, we'll see if we have enough time and questions to do a full rotation. I will add that in case a candidate experiences a technical difficulty with Zoom on his or her end that somehow interferes with their response, I'll make a decision at that time whether the situation requires tabling that candidate's response to the end of the line for that question. Now, I want to welcome all of the candidates here on our call tonight, in our forum tonight. So let's move on to the 1-minute introductory statements. And starting in alphabetical order, that begins with Chris Bates. Chris, your 1-minute introductory statement, please.
Thank you for having us tonight. Thank you, Bennington Banner. You know, I am Chris Bates. I was former state representative, Bennington 2-1 here in Vermont. I served on the Fish and Wildlife Committee, and we studied Act 250, and we were also covering Clean Water Initiative. And then recently I have been on the Police Department Policy Advisory Committee for Special Events. I've been in Bennington now going on 9 years, and I love the town, and I hope to count on your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up is Mike Bethel. Mike, 1 minute.
Is he on mute?
Do we have Mike?
I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Mike, go ahead with your 1-minute introduction.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Cat TV for putting this on, and the Bennington Banner, of course. The reason I'm running is I'm tired of the way Bennington is doing business from the select board level. I think over the last several years anyway, it's been very unfriendly to the people that it represents. I don't think they listen enough to the people that have legitimate concerns. Some of the concerns that have been brought up in the last few years are lowering taxes and bringing business to Bennington. And they just want more accountability from the select board. And recently, we've got to start addressing, which there is a group of people forming that is going to do it with help from the hospital and other agencies, the drug problems that we have in Bennington. So I hope we get into these discussions as this forum goes on, and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Next up, we have Jim Carroll. Jim, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you to the Bennington Banner and Cat TV for hosting this. It's been the greatest honor and privilege to serve the people of Bennington, both in the legislature and on the select board. And, I've worked very hard to work for our constituents, both through the pandemic when it came to unemployment benefits and other things. And I would say arguably, I am probably contacted more than any other select board because people have put their faith in me to help them answer questions. I don't always get them the answer that they want, but I try. And I'd like to continue to do that. We worked, as a select board this year to lower taxes from 3.5% to 2% for the taxpayers of Bennington.
Thank you, Jim. That's time.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be able to wrap up in your 2-minute post remarks. Next, let's go to Tina Cook. Tina, your 1 minute starts now.
Thank you, Kevin. And I want to thank Cat TV, and I also want to thank my family. Can you hear me all right?
Gotcha. Now.
My friends who have really supported me in this run. This was never something I intended to do, but I am so excited for the opportunity. I've been in Vermont for 21 years, and I worked at Southern Vermont College. I worked at the Career Development Center here in Bennington. I worked for Orvis Corporation. So I've worked for a lot of businesses in Vermont, and my experience is in communications. So that is really going to be some of my focus, is helping the town and rebuild their websites and improve communication with the voters and the townspeople. So education is another one of my huge loves, and I want to partner closely with the Career Development Center and the schools. Thank you.
1 minute goes by quick.
It does.
Next is Gary Corey. Gary, your 1 minute starts now.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thanks, Kevin. My name's Gary Corey. I'm running for a 3-year seat on the board. I was born and raised in Bennington. I went through the Bennington School, graduated from Mount Anthony, went on to Vermont Technical College, got a degree there, and then went on to Kansas State University to get my bachelor in architecture. After college, I moved back to Bennington to be around my family, raised my 2 daughters, Sarah and Hannah, here. I opened my architectural practice a little over 30 years ago on Main Street and have been in downtown Bennington ever since. I think now is a critical time, and as we slowly come out of this COVID crisis, we're at a point where we need to keep building on our past successes and leverage them into new opportunities. I want your vote for the select board, and I want to make sure that Bennington keeps moving forward.
Thank you so much, Gary. Next is Tom Haley. Tom, your 1 minute starts right now.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm Tom Haley, and I am running to fill the one-year vacancy on the Bennington Select Board. I'd like to thank Cat TV and the Bennington Banner to make this event happen. And I would especially like to thank the viewers at home for taking the time to join us this evening. In these tremendously difficult times, it's heartening to see our democratic ideals are alive and well, with so many citizens standing up to run for the board. Like you, I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say about themselves and their visions for our town. So again, thank you for coming, thank you for listening, and I hope to thank you for your vote on town meeting day.
Thank you, Tom. Next, Colleen Harrington, your 1-minute introduction begins now.
Hi, I'm Colleen Harrington, and I'm running for the board because I'd like to see change in Bennington, where there's more transparency and accountability, and that when citizens are looking for documents, they under the FOIA process, they can be released, and lowering taxes, letting people be able to have their businesses and survive and make a living and raise families in a good, nice, wholesome environment for everyone. And I think that's imperative to moving forward successfully in Bennington.
Thanks, Colleen. And I believe right next to you is Kevin Hoyt sharing the screen. So let me reset the 1-minute clock there. Kevin, your 1 minute begins now.
All right, thanks everybody for having us and joining us. My name's Kevin Hoyt. I was born and raised right here in Bennington, Vermont. I've seen a lot of changes over my 51 years here, a lot of good, a lot of bad. Specifically, I'm also interested in transparency and accountability for our select board. I think we've got some major issues that our leaders seem to be overlooking. Opioids, like Mr. Bethel talked about is a big one. The loss of rights and freedoms. And I know in 2018, Colleen Harrington and I did an election audit, and we found massive irregularities. And the fact that we can't get anybody in our local government or our state government to look at it is very concerning to me. And basically, I am not a politician. I think it's my best attribute. I'm a deer hunter from Vermont. Again, I'm a local guy. I think I know about the local culture. I do know business. Started my career as a project manager and technical draftsman. Never expected to be here like Tina, but I got to have a home to come back to. So thank you.
We're doing well. We're doing well. And for our last introductory statement, we now move to Nancy White. Nancy, your 1 minute begins now.
Hi, I'm Nancy White. I'm a lifelong resident of Bennington. I've watched the select board meetings for 40 years. I'm very aware of how our town government used to operate. Over the past decade, transparency and accountability no longer means anything. For 5 years, you've watched me at televised meetings trying to get answers to questions we all have a right to know. You've watched the select board refuse to speak or give me the runaround. Every citizen is a stakeholder in this town. Your voices should be heard and valued. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you, candidates, for your introductions. Now we are going to move on to our first question. Each candidate will be able to have 2 minutes to answer each question. I will read the first question once. If a candidate needs a reminder in between of what the exact question was, I will repeat that. And Mike Bethel will be first to field question 1. Mike will get 2 minutes for that. And here's the first question. In 2018, Vermont Attorney General T.J. Donovan reviewed the Bennington Police Department's handling of complaints by former state representative Kaya Morris, Vermont's only Black woman legislator, that she and her family had been subjected to racial harassment. Donovan found that the harassment they had suffered did not meet.
We lost you, Kevin. Yeah, no sound.
Can everybody else hear me? Okay.
Yeah, they're moving.
Donovan found that the harassment they had suffered did not meet the threshold of a criminal offense, but recommended that the town hire an outside agency to look for racial bias in the police department's policies and procedures. The agency the town hired, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, concluded that the policies appear neutral. but recommended a review and update of those policies, the consideration of a civilian advisory board, and greater efforts to involve the community. A committee established by the select board is now conducting a review with citizen input. The question is, do you believe that the select board is giving proper emphasis to this issue? And do you feel that police reforms are needed in Bennington? Mike Bethel, your 2 minutes begins now.
It's a difficult question to answer the way you put it, because I think TJ Donovan didn't do his job. I think there should have been charges brought then. But by saying that, can any police department be reformed from within or from without? Well, of course. Every policeman in our force or any force is a human being, and people do make mistakes. I, for one, do not understand the whole black and white hatred that's been in this country since time began. I think everybody is equal under God's eyes, and certainly not that I'm a God, but my eyes. I have friends that are black, white, whatever, and I just don't get it. But I think TJ Donovan let Kaya Morris down. I think there was enough there that they should have brought some action against the individual or individuals that harassed her. I don't believe she made them up. I don't believe that anybody deserves being bullying in this community, no matter what age you are, no matter what color you are, or what religious background you are. So I'll leave it at that, but I think TJ sort of shoved it off on Bennington, and it really wasn't fair. But does our police department need some reform? Yes, but to the tune of what we had to spend to do it, I don't know about that. But that's the end of this one for me, if you can.
Thank you so much, Mike. Next, the question goes to Jim Carroll. Jim, do you believe that the board is giving proper emphasis to this issue, and do you feel police reforms are needed in Bennington? Your time starts now.
Thank you. I think the board is taking this very seriously. We all have. And to go back to the very central question about this, and in defense of both the select board and Paul Doucette, Paul Doucette brought all those charges to Erica Marthage about the complaints that Kaya had made, and Erica refused to bring charges against the individual, and TJ Donovan backed her up, and those are the facts. Nevertheless, I think that the town and the select board have worked very, very hard to try to address the underlying problems in the town of Bennington. The work is not done, but I think it's probably the most important work that the town of Bennington has ever done. And I have confidence that we're going to try even harder and keep at it. This is something that's not going to go away, and we all have to be on the same page about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Cook, your turn. 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. I am friends with Kaya, and it hurts me to understand what she went through, and she does not feel like she received the justice that she deserves. And I believe she did not receive the justice that she deserves. And so do the chiefs of police, and so do so many other agencies. I mean, how many times do we have to be told? How many reports with data do we need to read? So yes, I believe that reform is definitely needed. I have some ideas that I would like to contribute on how to do just that. And also, I've been able to participate in the advisory board meetings. So that's actually how I really got involved and was pulled in. And it was my pleasure. And I feel like there's a lot more that can be done, but a lot of work has been put into this. And I'm proud to be a part of it. And I would like more participation from more people. It'd be great. Thank you. And I do ask for your vote.
Thank you, Tina. Gary Corey, your 2 minutes begins now.
Okay. So I think our police have a really difficult job. I think that, you know, these are the guys who are running toward dangerous situations while the rest of us are trying to run away. And I know that they have a lot on their plate, and they often fill a gap where other resources are not available, such as social services, mental health counseling, drug counseling. I support our police, and I know a few of them, and I know the ones I know are good people. And I also know that there has to be a system in place for accountability, and the report on the police force, to me, is part of that system. I believe that the select board has taken it seriously. I think that the study is proof of that. And that report suggested ways to improve the community, improve their community relations, I mean, through training. And I believe that's happening. I believe it's ongoing. And I would expect to monitor that continually as a member of the select board. Thank you.
Gary, thank you. For the viewers who may just be tuning in, we're asking the question, do the candidates here believe that the select board is giving proper attention to the issue of citizen review? And do you feel that police reforms are needed in the town of Bennington? And Tom Haley, your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. This is an important question. I think the select board has made a start, but there's a lot more work that I think needs to be done. I think that we need to better address the issues of inherent bias. I think we have to address the potential issues of over-policing, particularly in traffic stops. I think we need to establish a citizens advisory board as quickly as possible. Even more so, I think we should go with a citizens oversight board. But beyond that, you know, I'm looking forward to continuing the work that this current board has already started. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we move to Colleen Harrington. Colleen, your 2 minutes begins now. And you've got to unmute yourself, Colleen.
I'm sorry. I think that the civilian board is a good start. I think it's an idea to better examine what's going on in our local police. But I don't think that it'll have any teeth. And I think that it may be just a way that they're placating the citizens to try to get through the current situation. And I think that until that we can actually fire police officers who aren't doing their job and do it effectively and in a timely manner, especially if they're affecting other citizens. I don't think that things are going to change, especially when it ultimately comes back down to those who are been entrusted to enforce those very laws. Jim Carroll said it very well. Erica Marthridge, it's ultimately up to her, and if she decides that she wants to pursue it, she can, and if she decides that she doesn't want to pursue it, she doesn't have to. That it's not following the law, but whether if you want to go after a person or not. And I do believe that. And I think we could do so much more if Vermont instituted some type of internal affairs, even if Bennington doesn't have this to support a full-time unit. There certainly could be a traveling unit, maybe two, one for the northern part of Vermont, one for the southern, that could go around and handle and hear these cases. As a civilian board doesn't have the background for law or what's legal.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Don't unmute, because Kevin Hoyt
I'm
is
right
up
here.
next and is sharing your microphone. Kevin, the question goes to you. Your 2 minutes start now.
All right, and I think you've asked a number of different questions in there. First of all, regarding Kaya Morris, Representative Kaya Morris, I looked into that in great detail, and I disagree with her. I think there was a lot of false or exaggerated claims there. This is not the Vermont I know, and I'll be the only guy here, I guess, to go on officially on record, say Vermont's the least racist state in the nation. Vermonters are the most accepting and tolerant people. Now, is there racism here? Absolutely. I think the board has spent an overabundant amount of time, money, and energy. I remind people that we have about an opioid overdose every day. We had homeless people dying, freezing to death in our streets. And here we are talking about, in my opinion, a non-issue. Again, and I don't want to, again, they call me a racist, right? Is that a derogatory term? I'm a Nazi. I'm a white supremacist because I want to debate Kaya Morris with gun control. White is a color too. When I received real death threats left at my house in my car, again, by Team Kaya Morris, there just has to be equality, right? I think this is a shot to our culture. And again, Vermont is inherently white. I don't think we're too white. We open and accept everybody, and I'm willing to open and accept everybody, but they got to respect our culture and treat us right the same way. I think this was really a side attempt to take our Second Amendment rights, and it had nothing to do with racism. Unfortunately, I think that's what this hurts the most, is the real fight against racism. And I'll stand again that Vermonters are not racist. We're the best people on the planet. Thank you.
Nancy White, the question goes to you. Your 2 minutes begins now. Nancy, just unmute yourself is all.
All
There
set?
you go. All set. Go ahead.
I think the select board missed a huge opportunity in our community. After they decided to do the study, we should have had public meetings at the firehouse. Citizens, officials, law enforcement, we should have gotten together to talk. You can't solve an issue if you aren't willing to get everybody together and hear each other's points of view. It's disappointing with COVID that we haven't had the in-person meetings that we were promised. I was surprised last spring when the select board announced community policing is going to cost us more and we're just going to have to pay for it. I don't know how the select board would know that. I hope going forward, we will all be involved in the discussions. I think when it comes to community policing, I very much want to know if money is going to be shifted around in the budget, and I think we should have a say about that before the select board does it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris Bates, you will wrap up the answers to this question.
Can you repeat the question? It's been a while.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's see. A committee established by the select board is now conducting a review with citizen input of the complaints that arose out of the situation involving former state representative Kaya Morris. And the question is, do you believe that the select board is giving proper emphasis to this issue? And do you feel that police reforms are needed in Bennington? Your 2 minutes begins now.
Great question. Great question. Yes, I believe the select board took this very, very seriously when they had the report get back from the ICAP. They looked at it, they had to decide what they wanted to do, and I believe that they took the proper steps to make this committee happen. And as far as the police department and the reforms, we have to keep moving forward. If we become too stagnant in something, it's just a way to jumpstart us. We need to get into 2021 with not only our police department, but with everything. And when I sat on the committee for special events with the police advisory committee, it was quite interesting about how the steps are taken and how the people in the committee actually work together. It was a wonderful experience. But as we keep moving forward in 2021 with our police department, I believe we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. We'll now move on to our second question. It's a question about what town government should look like in the future. Jim Carroll will be the first person to answer this question. And the question is, for the 5th time since 1998, Bennington voters are being asked to approve a mayoral form of government. 2 referendums were defeated in 1998 and 2003, and proposed charter change amendments were defeated in 2018 and 2019. The current proposal put forward by lead sponsors Mike Bethel and Nancy White, both of whom are running for the select board, would eliminate the professional manager's position and create an elected mayor's position, leaving the select board intact, but with an altered role. They have argued that a mayor would provide focused leadership, that no one person in the current system is held accountable, and that officials are not responsive to residents and have not moved the town forward, especially in terms of the local economy. What is your position on this issue, this question of a mayoral form of town government for Bennington? Jim, your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. I want to go back to the last question that was asked and amend what I had to say. And that is that within each and every case that Paul Doucette brought to Erica Marthage, Erica determined that it didn't meet the threshold of a crime. Now, in retrospect, what we should have done and with the town and the police department is publicized, what had been done, and that might have mitigated or diminished that activity. That wasn't done. Nevertheless, to your question, this question now, but I've given this a lot of thought, and the people of Bennington have voted on this 5 times, and consistently it's been 70-30 in opposition. And I think the greatest flaw in the mayoral question is that right now, under the discretion, and if you read the town charter, and I'm loosely paraphrasing it, the town manager serves at the pleasure of the select board. And if at any time the town manager is negligent in his duties, the select board can give him a 2-week warning and replace him. With a mayoral system, and the rules haven't been written yet, if it were to pass, that guy's or woman is in there for whatever the length of term is, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it is. And it would be a lengthy and complicated process to get him out of there with a recall vote. Again, the rules about this, should the people of Bennington decide to go forward with a mayoral form of government, it's not going to be simple. It's not going to be easy.
Time.
Pardon me?
That's time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. We move next to Tina Cook. Tina, what is your position on this question of whether Bennington should have a mayoral form of government?
Thank
Your 2
you.
minutes begin now.
Thanks. I don't really think we need it. We have the same powers by voting for select board members. So the town chooses their select board members. We represent the town. Actually, and from what my research is showing that it's going to cost us a lot more for the position of a mayor. Right now, we're paying a lot less for the position of town manager than is the national average. So with new people in the select board, we will get to make new decisions and see new changes and implement new programs that will help Bennington grow. That is absolutely my focus, is new revenue streams and ways to reduce taxes and ways to introduce new business into the area, and not just that, but take advantage of the rich resources we already have here. So those are my goals. And I think a mayor would just add more bureaucracy, another layer, nothing would ever get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Next up is Gary Corey. Gary, your 2 minutes. Begin now.
Okay. I agree with Tina. I think I want to add my voice to the group that thinks this is a bad idea. We vote for 7 people to represent us as a select board and oversee a skilled manager to run our town. With the mayor, we'll end up every 3 years electing a new person, someone for a position of a high rate of pay, possibly with no management experience, possibly with no experience in budget, possibly with no experience with roads, bridges, water systems, housing, zoning, yeah, all of that. The list goes on. And then that person has to learn the job, replace key positions with staff, possibly with no qualifications, possibly their friends. I think it's going to end up being a waste of taxpayer dollars. That's all.
Thank you, Gary. Tom Haley, the question goes to you. Do you support or not a mayoral form of government? Your time begins now.
Thank you very much. I plan to vote against the proposal on election day. And my reasons are very similar to Mr. Corey's, Ms. Cook's. I just don't see how replacing the town manager position with a partisan would be helpful. And I understand the frustrations that people are having. I've had them myself in trying to get things, information from the town. But I think there are other ways that we can rectify these issues other than just starting over and switching over to a mayoral system that I ultimately think will cost us more money, be less efficient, and in the long run, actually slow growth.
Thank you, Tom. Next, Colleen Harrington. Your 2 minutes to answer this question begins now.
Well, I've kind of gone back and forth on the issue of the mayor, and I'm still on the fence. I think if we had a good mayor, the system would be okay. And perhaps if we had term limits in place, if it was a bad mayor, we could vote them out. The problem is, my thought is, if a mayor is put into place, my worst nightmare is if it was someone similar to Stu Hurd, to be honest with you. And currently the economy is in a disaster here in Bennington. We don't even have a place where we can buy a shirt other than Walmart. All of the businesses are closed, the small businesses, and many are never coming back. And the problem with the select board is that it has grown to where it doesn't serve the town. It serves Stu. And if Stu wants something done, that's what happens. And it doesn't seem like we ever get new people, but the same old people doing the same things. And there's no transparency. Getting records is like pulling teeth there, and you have to ask every which way of Sunday to get anything, and sometimes they just deny it. And I just think that there has to be a better system. And if we had a select board that did rein in Stu, I would be more apt to say you could leave the system, but we don't have that either. So I'm really just in the dark to which way to go. And I'm going to have to think about that a little more before it comes election day. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Kevin Hoyt, your turn. 2 minutes begins now.
All right, again, I will agree with everybody. I stand opposed against the mayor idea. Again, the basic bottom line is agreeing with Tina that we just simply can't afford another position. I think it's a trick question, though. I think the real problem here is the people of Bennington do not necessarily want a mayor. They just want Stu Hurd, our town manager, out. And we can achieve that by electing the proper select board that's going to represent the people. The only difference between a mayor and a town manager is oversight, really. Our select board is supposed to have oversight over the town, over a manager, as where a mayor could have his free will and rule until the next election. So that's one of the main reasons. And if I can jump back to the last question, like Mr. Carroll did, again, I want to say I do back the blue, but we got to get rid of the criminal element within the blue. And it seems like it's a lot of our top rated, when we have bolos going out for our sheriff and high bailiff, when we have fathers all of a sudden come down with COVID, there's no cooperation, there's no questions being answered. We can't even go into our police station. I think there's a real problem there. So I think there's reform is due, but the overall general analysis behind the police is awesome, and I support them. Like Mr. Carroll also said, 99% of them are great guys. So thanks for what they do. That's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Next is Nancy, and I'll just remind Nancy White, just unmute yourself. There you go. Your 2 minutes to answer this question, whether you support a mayoral form of government for the town of Bennington. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Sure. The select board is responsible for the actions of the town manager. Only the select board hires a town manager. Many in Bennington do not think the select board has been accountable for the town manager for over a decade. When Stu Hurd retires, only the select board will hire his replacement. Is there anybody in our town office that you want to see replace Mr. Hurd? Would you prefer somebody from across the country who knows nothing about Bennington to replace him? A mayor will have the same expertise that they can contact that Stuart does. He or she could contact the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. There are experts in Montpelier. This is how smaller towns have to do it. We have many people in the town office who've been there for years that know what they're doing. All a yes vote does is open the charter and put the mayor in there as an option. That's as far as it goes, unless we want to take step 2. I think getting that option in the charter will be a wake up to the Bennington machine that citizens have had enough. We want to get our say back in Bennington, and we're tired of backroom deals. Thank you.
Thank you. The next 2 minutes go to Chris Bates. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. You know, I grew up in a mayoral system. I lived in a mayoral system. And then when I came to Bennington, I found that first thing I said was, do they have a mayor? And they were like, no, we have a select board. And I had no clue what a select board was until someone explained it to me. But, you know, after being here for the 9 years, I come to find that a select board is the way to go. And being a former legislator, I was able to see a lot of the other towns, and they run just fine with a select board, and some with less, some with only 5. So I too would have to vote no against a mayoral system, just for the simple fact that it's a long drawn out process where you may not get the right guy. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris Bates. And wrapping up the final answer to this particular question, do our candidates support a mayoral form of government for Bennington, is Mike Bethel. Mike, your 2 minutes begins now.
Well, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, obviously I'm for a mayor. Some of the information that was put out by the other candidates is really false. It's not going to cost to have a mayor anymore. Quite honestly, it might cost us less because that individual is going to have a vision and work for it, the position. If it's a he or a her, are going to have to work for their position. You still have to vote in select board members. That's not going to change. Our economy is not doing well, and a mayor would have to make sure that it does well. The other thing I want to remind people about is the salt shed ordeal. That cost this town of Bennington the tune of $27,000 that we paid Stu Hurd's fine and legal fees because he broke the law, number one. And we don't have any way, the citizens, of getting rid of Stu Hurd other than the select board, and they did not do a good job on that. They didn't go after the fact that he was bonded by the League of Cities and Towns, and then come to find out he's on the board of the Leagues of Cities and Towns board. So that I don't quite understand. But this vote on the March 2nd only opens up the charter to allow us to have it in the future. It gives the citizens of Bennington an option for the future. It does not mean we're going to have a mayor next week. We have to have another vote to see if we even want a mayor. So all the scare tactics that everybody puts out is really not fair if you really want to make Bennington have options for the future. So I hope people will vote for the mayor vote. This just opens up the charter. Thank you.
Thank you for your great answers and for staying on topics. This is fantastic. Let's move on to our third question, and we are moving along quite well, so thank you. And our third question, and our first answerer to our third question will be Tina Cook. Here's the question. 2020 was Vermont's deadliest year for opioid overdoses in at least the past decade. And the death toll is expected to increase as the state analyzes some outstanding data. Between January and November of last year, 134 Vermonters died of accidental opioid overdoses, eclipsing the record high of 130 overdose deaths that the state saw back in 2018. Southern Vermont has been hit particularly hard. 60 of those who died last year were residents of Bennington, Rutland, Windham, or Windsor counties. This is the highest number of fatal overdoses Vermont has seen since 2010. The question is the town of Bennington doing all it can do to combat this epidemic? Tina, your 2 minutes to answer this question begins now.
Thank you. We have a huge problem, but we also have the solutions right here in Bennington. So telehealth is going to be paramount during this time. And I would love to see more medical professional therapists intervention before we even get to these statistics. So most of the people that have OD'd are known. We know who these people are. They're our friends, they're our families. You know, we need to be able to have access to mental health care to prevent the need for escapism. That's what drug addiction is. And instead of criminalizing it, we need to understand and do what is needed and what is effective. And I think we have the resources here. And actually, that is part of my platform. And even if I don't win, I intend to work on those things. And the key in Bennington is going to be collaboration. We have so many people that can work together to end this epidemic.
Thank you, Tina. The question goes next to Gary Corey, and the question is the town doing all that it can do to combat the opioid epidemic? Your time begins now.
I agree with Tina that collaboration of the experts in our town that know and understand about opioid and drug addiction are people that we really need to reach out to as a select board. I myself have no expertise in it. And as a select board member, I would look for that expertise within our town, create partnerships that can help that. And I would say ask the experts of how to deal better with this. I think it's education is key. I think affordable housing and mental health are huge issues that are all tied to the issue of drug problems in our town. Thank you.
Gary, thank you. The next question, or the next candidate to answer this question is Tom Haley. Tom, your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. The opioid epidemic is an incredibly complex issue that town government by itself is not going to be able to fix. As the previous two answers said, we are going to have to collaborate with places like the Turning Point and other experts in town who are more equipped and better able to comprehend the intricacies of this issue. But you also have to get back to the core causes of that. housing, unemployment. The list goes on. It is a tremendously difficult problem, and we also have to work very hard on working our legislators to make sure that the funds come to Bennington and around the state to pay for these programs, because certainly the Bennington taxpayer can't take this burden on all by themselves. But it's going to have to be a group effort. Town government alone cannot fix it, but it is certainly something that has to be on the forefront of all of our minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Colleen Harrington, your 2 minutes begins now.
The opioid issue is really something that I don't think has ever been addressed here. It's been steadily growing for the last 10 years, and it's just continued to get worse and worse. And we have no real treatment centers here. There's no help available. There's counseling and there's Suboxone program. And if you want to cross the line, you can get methadone. But there's not any kind of retraining program to teach people job skills. Well, once they come out of addiction, they have to have skills to re-enter society and become a part of society again. And I don't think just simply housing or unemployment is going to fix the drug problem. It's not about them being unemployed. They'll find money for drugs if they want money for drugs. It's not about having a house. They'll stay out behind the railroad station by the river. It's not about any of those issues. It's about getting people help that truly want to get help, to revamp their lives and become part of society again. And I've actually heard it mentioned that people in management, upper government here in town don't want a rehab center in the middle of Bennington, which, you know, now instead of a rehab center in the middle of Bennington, now they have junkies on every corner, which you know, I don't know how that's a better look for Bennington, but you know, and we need to start prosecuting dealers and not let them out 4, 5, 6 times. When they get caught with big amounts of drugs, they need to be prosecuted, sentenced, and sent to jail.
Next time. Kevin Hoyt, your answer to the question, is the town doing all that it can do to combat the opioid epidemic?
I do not believe it is. I think our town should be ashamed, along with our state and even our nation. The solution here, I don't think, is that difficult. In fact, I've been saying it for years, and we can use existing money. Colleen hit the nail on the head. It's about that 3-day window when the user is out of drugs or out of money, and there is no help for them. So I think we can take existing money and transfer it from law enforcement and incarceration, and we put it to treatment and prevention along with education. Education is key, and we've never had real rehab in this nation, really. A 28-day detox does not help people. I think rehab should be a minimum of 3 months up to 18 months, and when we find a kid, we got to Narcan him in the steward's bathroom. I think that's a mandated rehab. That'd be the 3-month deal. The 18-month deal would have to come with housing and job training and aftercare. And again, we're talking about economic and growth and development on a giant, massive level. All these treatment centers, all these again, the rehabilitation places and the aftercare. I think that's the future for Vermont, and I'm sick of watching our friends and neighbors die. We have done nothing except talk about it, and I'm done talking about it. Portugal set the precedents, the world precedents been proven, it's been set, and it's as simple as doing it. We've never attempted anything like this, and I think Vermont should be the first state, and I'd love to lead the nation into solving this real pandemic. This is the threat that we face. It affects every one of us, whether it's your recluse living up on the mountain, it's your crime rates, tax rates, our overstressed prisons, EMX, the police, you name it, right? In defense of the blue, I think they doubled or tripled their calls last year, right? Look at the crime rate in Bennington. That's another key issue that we have to look at. And again, you guys are all right. It comes back to that root evil, which is oppression. And I think that's by our actual leaders in our government. they're the
Thank-
ones
Thanks,
overspending.
Kevin.
Thank you.
That's time. Nancy White, your turn. Your 2 minutes begins now once you unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go. All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
Working in healthcare, I'm aware that a lot of different groups have been working on a lot of different parts behind the scenes. I think all of our families have been affected by this, but I think we've got to have a balance. We've got to have a balance between helping and accountability. I think we can put people in programs and rehabs over and over and over. I think until a person truly wants to take it upon themselves, I don't know if it's going to work. I think we need much better funding. I think we need more programs, but we have to decide, we're at the state level, are we going to take the money away to put into this program? We are out of money at the state level. So we need to decide, where do we cut money in one program so that we can put a lot more money and effort into fighting this epidemic. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up, Chris Bates. Your 2 minutes begins now.
So, you know, a lot of times constituents confuse state issues and town issues. And what happens is we have a trickle-down effect. And the town of Bennington is somewhat handcuffed for financial part of this combating of the opioid problem. So if the state doesn't send us the money to get a program going, we're not going to do it. If we have more issues, then we send them to UCS, which is a wonderful program. We have it right here in Bennington. It's huge. It's monstrous. People that I know go there. It's a helpful situation, but if we run out of money on a state level, then the town suffers. So we have to keep on our legislators. We have to keep on our senators. Senator Sears, Senator Campion are very good at getting money for these kind of programs. And that's what I would suggest, is that the constituents of Bennington get to the senators, because that's really where it's at. So that's where I'm at on this issue. It's more a state issue than a town issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Next is Mike Bethel. Mike? Maybe Mike?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Your floor.
All right, there's a new group that contacted me, a bunch of parents, mothers and grandmothers, a couple of weeks ago, and we formed actually a parents task force against drugs. They were very upset to hear about the last young lady that perished in our community, and I personally have known over the last few years 4 or 5 very nice young girls, and they all left kids, and it breaks your heart that they lose their lives this way. They're basically today playing Russian roulette when they take drugs, especially with the fentanyl in it. So this group and I have talked for a while, and we're trying to get to the next generation so this doesn't keep going on and on and on. And the only way I think you can do it is get to the mothers and the grandparents and the grandfathers and the friends of the people that are doing it now, but also the younger children, the 10, 11, and 12, and 13s. I've talked to Turning Point, I've talked to UCS, I've talked to the hospital, and they're banding together to start, not reinvent the wheel, but to get the wheel moving again with a new flyer that's going to be out shortly. And it's basically going to say, life, yes, drugs, no, and give a list of all the agencies that are available. And in the future, we want to have community discussions when COVID gets away, we can get people together and talk about this problem. But the next generation should not be infected with this. Like they talked about Mothers Against Driving and warn people about the dangers of smoking. We need to do more of that for the next generation. And does the select board do enough? No, not on this issue. I think they've sort of ignored it. And if I get on the board, it will not be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim Carroll, you get the final answer. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. It's going to sound counterintuitive, what I'm about to propose, and I pushed for it on the select board to get it on the March ballot, and that is retail cannabis. There would be a 2% tax on any marijuana that's sold in Bennington. And I would advocate that all of that money goes toward rehabilitation. It's a simple fact that, marijuana is here in our community. We all know that. I knew it when I was a kid. And people smoke. And if we were to pass that resolution to allow retail cannabis, as you fellow candidates may have seen around the country, it's generated tens of millions of dollars. And it would make sense to me to take that money and develop a rehab center in Bennington, particularly focused on opioid addictions. It's not going to be an easy lift, but I think there's an opportunity here for the people of Bennington to take advantage of this with the passage of retail cannabis. And granted, I don't smoke, but nevertheless, we know there's a problem, and there's an opportunity for us to address it. Another point that I want to make, and I'll try to be as brief before my time runs out, is that, this would lift the burden off our police department in having to go after black market dealers who may be selling it to young people in Bennington. But, it's an opportunity that I think we need to take advantage of. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to mention anyone who's just tuning in, you're watching the Bennington Select Board Candidates Forum brought to you by the Bennington Banner and Cat TV. I'm Kevin Moran, Executive Editor of the Bennington Banner. We're moving on to our next question, which will be answered first by Gary Corey. And the question is, Bennington County has the dubious distinction of having the highest rate COVID-19 cases per capita among Vermont's 14 counties. As of today, more than 355 residents per 10,000 have contracted the disease, nearly twice the rate of neighboring Windham County. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the county has recorded 7 deaths. Of the 1,268 COVID-19 cases reported in the county, 543 have been in the town of Bennington. Governor Scott has mandated mask wearing in public and prohibited large gatherings. But anecdotal evidence shows that not all people are complying. Is there more that the town of Bennington can be doing to slow the spread of the virus, particularly as new, more transmissible strains begin to arrive in the Northeast? Gary Corey, your 2 minutes begins now. And Gary, you just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
I think it's up to us as citizens to take responsibility. I mean, we can preach all day long about what you should do, how you should do it, and if people do not want to listen, people demand that they can go into a store without a mask on, that they can gather in large gatherings. We're not going to, we can't control that. I don't think we can control that because we don't have enough of a police force to travel around making sure that nobody's having a party at their house or something like that. I think that that we need to stress, and we need to continue to stress, to follow the CDC guidelines. And I think we need to just keep harping on people and try to get them to understand that they are causing this problem if they're not wearing their mask, if they're gathering. And hopefully with the vaccine, that we'll see this start to dissipate and leave our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Haley, you're next.
I think Gary nailed it, that it is a question of personal responsibility. The board has already mandated masks in public. Unfortunately, there's really no way to adequately enforce that beyond the wish of our citizens to protect our fellow citizens. You know, what I think makes Vermont great is the desire of each and every one of us to look out for our neighbors. And I think the simple act of putting on a mask is one of those things that we can do. I think not doing so is selfish, and it's really just contrary to everything that I was ever taught about what being a good neighbor and a good Vermonter is. We need our citizens to come together, put on the masks, get their vaccinations, and we can get through this. We're only delaying things by not working together and working with the guidelines that are set together by the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next up is Colleen. Colleen, I'm sorry. Yes, Colleen, your turn.
Well, the issues with the mask and the vaccines and there's a lot of outside factors with the mask. People have health issues. Not everybody can wear a mask. I don't think it's appropriate to make people feel like they're ostracized from society because they have a health condition or a medical problem that makes it difficult for them to wear masks. And not everybody, matter of fact, a lot of people I talk to have no intention of getting a vaccine that hasn't been thoroughly vetted out. And a lot of the research that's coming out, there's a lot of people that are having adverse health effects, including dying from the vaccine. And until it's better vetted out and deemed more safe, I have no intention of getting any vaccines. And that's my thoughts on it. And you know, the problem is you can't shame into people into thinking the way you want them to think, because that's how you feel and you want it. Many of the cities that were closed down for the last year, all of a sudden now there's no COVID issue and they're all opening up restaurants, bars. They've come out and said, oh, now it's safe. Well, what made it safe from last week? Because there's a lot of things that are not being told to the public. There's a lot of things that are misleading, and people just don't know the facts. And to be honest, I don't think you can trust media any longer.
Thanks, Colleen. Kevin Hoyt, your turn is next.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I'm not afraid. I'm a Vermonter and I played in cow poop as a kid. I haven't worn a mask yet, and I'm kind of insulted by Tom's comment because I have other
Remember,
options.
we're not going after individuals. So let's just
okay. Well, again, I felt like he came after me because I don't wear a mask. I take a product called Viral Spectrum Shield. It's 100% holistic, 100% natural, 100% safe. It's got over a decade of federally accredited lab tests, right? So that's my option. And again, I think the mask mandates are unconstitutional. If you look at the facts surrounding this, and again, when the Governor Scott first came out and told us we had no flu in Vermont this year, that was, I guess, my first red flag. We should be celebrating that miracle. But the fact is 85% of people are asymptomatic, which means they don't even feel like they have anything, right? It's got a 99.997% survival rate. So I had COVID. I slept for about a day, went through our family way back in February when nobody was doing anything about it except Donald Trump. So I'm not buying the hype. I think this is a real virus. And if you get If you have a weakened immune system, if you're elderly, if you have other chronic symptoms, it's something we should look at. But I think they were treating it wrong. Hydroxychloroquine is found out. They reversed it. The CDC has reversed it now and said, hey, that worked. So again, where Colleen's talking about the media, there's a lot of false information out on both sides. I recommend people research not only the virus, but also the vaccine. Robert Kennedy, who is a Democrat, has some great stuff on vaccines and in the past and this one in the future. But again, this stuff, the vaccine scares me more than the virus, and the constitutional rights. Those of us who give up our freedom and our rights and our liberty for security really get neither. And it's a fake security at that. So if the select board or a state or anybody wants to pass any more unconstitutional laws,
Thanks,
they
Kevin.
can. I'm not going to listen.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks. Nancy White, your turn is next. Unmute. There you go.
I work in the intensive care unit at the hospital. Like many of my coworkers, I've been caring for COVID patients for the past year. I will tell everybody, you do not want to catch COVID. You do not have the right to go out and pass it off to your friends, to your neighbors, to those of us working in healthcare, or to anybody else. We have two options right now. You can wear a mask and socially distance, or you can stay home. Not everybody catching COVID is elderly. Not everybody catching COVID has pre-existing conditions. We won't know for years what the long-term effects are going to be on somebody who may have even had a mild case of COVID. So please do us all a favor. I think the majority of the people in this town have done an outstanding job. Please try to help us who are helping others. Please try to stop this from being spread. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move next to Chris Bates, and I will restate the question. Is there more that the town of Bennington can be doing to slow the spread of the coronavirus, particularly as new, more transmissible strains begin to arrive in the Northeast? Chris, your turn.
So the town, well, let's go back to the state. The governor has a state of emergency, which now he's mandated masks for over a year now. And then it trickles down to the towns, and then the towns make their rulings. And we are doing everything we possibly can as a select board, as a town, to say, hey, wear a mask. It's not that difficult. You put it on, you go do whatever you're doing, you come out, you take it off. So, there's nothing more that the town can do other than what we've already done. And that is please wear a mask to stop the spread. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Mike Bethel, it's your turn to answer this question.
Well, it's a complicated question, obviously. I think it's up to the individual whether they want to wear a mask or not. But the state and the select board, I believe, are doing everything they can. I mean, there's not much more you can do. The vaccine, I'm personally not going to take one, but it doesn't mean other people shouldn't take one if they feel comfortable. I don't believe in forced vaccinations. I hope it doesn't come to that. But I do believe you should be distancing yourself, and if you can and want to wear a mask, do it. Be polite to other people when they confront you if you don't wear one. But there is medicines out there, and I wish the general press would put that out more, that if you do get it, you can get these medicines, the ones that the president was on and his crew, and they did get it. They were over it in 4 days. Lester Holt had a thing on the 21st of January on his broadcast that said that there's medicines out there, and there are plenty of them. If you get COVID, to get on these medicines. They're induced into you like a blood transfusion, but they can be done. And they showed a woman on there, and she was in mid-age, and she was active, and she was jogging, and she got the virus. And after about 4 days of being on this medicine, she was out, normal life again, jogging again. So, and what Kevin said is true from the statistics I've seen. 99 point something, that live through it, they don't die from it. So I think it's up to the individual. But my mother used to say, my old mother, if you're meant to be shot, you won't be hung. So I think there's something to that. But I hope nobody gets it. I hope nobody dies of it. But I do believe the state is doing all it can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jim Carroll, you're next.
Would you repeat the question again?
Sure. Is there more that the town of Bennington can be doing to slow the spread of the coronavirus, particularly as new, more transmissible strains begin to arrive in the Northeast?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. But we as a select board, when COVID hit the fan back in March and April, we issued a resolution to mandate, well, I think that's probably the wrong word, but offered guidance to businesses in Bennington to require masks. In the health department requires stores not to allow people in without a t-shirt or shoes. And this is, just one more step in that direction. However, to answer your central question, there is one thing that we could do, and we could pass an ordinance requiring people to wear masks. However, the cost of enforcement would be enormous and impossible to do. That we would have police doing nothing else but issuing tickets to people that go into a store. And there's a common misperception that or misconception, or both, that when you go into a store, your constitutional rights are being violated if you're asked to wear a mask. Well, that's not true. Once you enter somebody's store, for all intents and purposes, your constitutional rights end. The owner of the store or business can set the rules about how you conduct yourself in a store. You may not like it, and frankly, I hate wearing a mask. Makes me feel claustrophobic, makes my nose run. But those are the hard facts of the matter. And, it's been demonstrated that masks work. I don't know where else to go with that. The effectiveness of
Jim, your time is up. So
okay.
You went all where you needed to go with that answer.
All right. Thanks.
Tina, Tina Cook, you get the final say on this question.
I would like to see business owners take more responsibility. So there are a lot of businesses in Bennington that do it right and offer delivery services. Mill Toll does a beautiful job of delivery. And they really care. And then I walk down the street, Main Street, and see packed restaurants with people not wearing masks, these super spreader events, and it makes me very sad. So actually, even part of my campaign was to go and print up masks to share, because it's that important. And I do my part. I try to stay inside. I don't go out if I don't have to. I wash regularly. I even go, and if I have to stop and get gas, I'll clean the pumps. I'll sanitize the pumps and the keypads on ATMs around town. There's lots that we can do if we really care. I care about my fellow townspeople, but most importantly, I care about my family. I know people that have died from COVID personally, childhood friends that I'll never get to see again. And where I'm from, born and raised, it has a higher percentage of epidemic and deaths in the Imperial Valley. Anyone can Google that. They're having to life flight people to other places because there's no room in these emergency rooms anymore. There's no more room in morgues. These are people I know. So I don't know who else knows anyone that's died of COVID, but I don't want to be the cause of grandma not going to the next Thanksgiving meal. So I'll sacrifice this year for 20 more years. And I really encourage everyone else to do it. It's really not that hard. And I can't wear masks very easily either. I wear glasses, so I'm really blind when they're
Thank you,
I'm
Tina.
done. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, on that question. Moving on to our next question. In December, Southwestern Vermont Healthcare bought the former Southern Vermont College campus for $4.65 million, beating two other bidders in a bankruptcy auction. What would you like to see happen with the 371-acre property, and what should the select board's role be as Southern Vermont Healthcare develops its plans? The first person to answer this question, that opportunity goes to Tom Haley. Tom, you are up first. You get 2 minutes, which begins now.
Thank you. I was happy to see the hospital able to purchase the SVC property. I think they are going to be great stewards of the land, and their commitment to health and so forth will ensure that those trails remain open to the users in Bennington. As for what potential uses there are, I think there are people smarter than I who are working on that issue right now. I know there are groups that are the investment group that put the deal together are currently looking at various different ideas. I think the best thing that the select board can do is to help shepherd these programs through the various processes that are necessary to get approvals, both local and state, and to make sure those things are done properly. Beyond that, I don't think it's necessarily the board's job to direct a private organization like the hospital on what exactly they're going to do with the property they now own. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next up for this question is Colleen Harrington. Colleen, you're on mute, so once you undo that, we'll get going. Your time.
Okay, well, this question's actually pretty easy for me because I just sat in not too long ago with a meeting with Shannon Barsotti and several others in the community. And the idea that I brought forth was actually for the college and the land there to be turned back into a college, but instead of the subjects that were taught there previously, to incorporate some type of cannabis college. I think you would draw all kinds of people from all over the country who wanted to study all aspects of cannabis, including from the business aspect, owning your own dispensary, working in dispensary, cultivation, manufacturing. There's all kinds of things that could be done with that. And on top of that, we could also use, because the dorms were already in place, one of those dorms could be specifically set aside for rehab and integration classes and things back into the community. We could work with the CDC for technical expertise to help people with job training. And you could also do some type of pilot program to see how marijuana could be used to effectively help with opioid addiction. And I think that would have been a great idea, but I don't know if that's the way they'll go or not. So, and that's the end.
Thanks, Colleen.
Mhm.
Keep that mic on and slide it over to Kevin Hoyt.
Yep.
Kevin, your
All
turn.
right. Appreciate you guys working with us, and no fair because we live together. She obviously stole my answer. I'm just going to add agriculture, horticulture. We've got business development. We've got management, marketing. There's a number of different things that we could utilize the college, and hemp is another big one. When we talk about cannabis, everybody thinks about the medical marijuana, but hemp, I think, is the future for Vermont state, not only our farming industry, but I'd like to take that product and make it or take the hemp and actually make it into product, make it into lumber and boards, construction. So again, now you're talking manufacturing, developing, and jobs. So since I got a little more time, I want to back up. I think it's remarkable that the incumbents are always looking for money. We were talking about the opioid thing with the state issue. If we took care of opioids on a state basis, Like I said before, we could use existing money from incarceration and law enforcement. It wouldn't cost taxpayers anything else. As far as the town level, maybe if we didn't buy $500,000 salt sheds and $100,000 pocket parks, we'd have a little bit of extra money. Again, this overspending, I think, is one of the big problems. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is the COVID stuff. Going back to that, we don't know the long-term effects of COVID, but we're starting to feel the long-term effect of the shutdown. We're talking about opioids, alcoholism, loss of jobs, loss of business. A lot of these things aren't going to come back. And again, the numbers never match the reaction. And the long-term effect of this shutdown is going to be a lot worse than this virus ever thought about being. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up is Nancy White. Just got to hit that unmute button. One more, give it one more try there. There you go. You're up.
This is a tough one for me. For a year, many of us, including myself, felt that the chance for the town to buy that property was the best chance for economic development we've had in 25 years. Unfortunately, we couldn't find one person on the select board that would let us have a 10-minute conversation about how we could have used that property to put this town back on the map, how we could have drawn thousands of people to Bennington with money in their pockets to come to that property that would have come back down into town. So that ship has sailed. I certainly would have no problem as a citizen paying for something that I'd like to do at the college. I don't think that our town budget should be used up there. We're paying, I don't know, $700,000-800,000 a year for recreation as it is now. So I will certainly support it as a citizen and pay my own way up there, but I don't think as a town we should be paying for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. And let's see, next up is Chris Bates. Let me just restate the question. What would you like to see happen with the 371-acre property that is the former Southern Vermont College campus? And what should the select board's role be as SVHC develops its plans?
Well, I think the first most important thing is I don't think the select board should tell Tom Dees or his group or whoever's going to be taking over and running that property, what they should do with it. It's their business, and whatever they come up with more than likely will be very acceptable. There's all kinds of things swirling around and what it's going to do. And I'm pretty excited about it, to be quite honest with you. As far as what I'd like to see is if we can generate and turn it into a tax base and get it on our grand list, and not as long as it's not a not-for-profit. So if it was a for-profit, would be really helpful. So that's what I'm looking at with that property. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Let's move next to Mike Bethel. Mike, your turn.
I'm glad they bought it. I wish we had bought it as a town, but I think as Nancy had said that we just didn't have the town people on the select board to have any imagination or vision at all to at least have the discussion. What the hospital does with it, I hope they do something to bring entertainment with the mansion. I hope they utilize it for themselves instead of trying to build downtown 2 4-story buildings on the Putnam block. And it has the availability with the gym and the land to really bring a lot of recreation to our area that we've been longing for, without the town spending all this money on the MAU gym and all this stuff at the Y and all this new money that they're trying to dump into old buildings. I think that property up there is a godsend for us. I'm glad the hospital bought it. Tom Dees seems like he's pretty smart on handling things, and he just hired a new director. I forgot the gentleman's name, but I'm sure they'll come up with something for the good use of the area. We have everything here in Bennington. I mean, there isn't anything we don't have, except maybe an ocean view. but we've got fishing, hiking, all the sports. We have a downtown. We have a Northside Drive. We have an airport. We have a hospital. We have a museum. You name it, we got it, except we don't have people on the board that are willing to listen to the citizens that they represent and have a vision to bring something new to the town of Bennington. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Jim Carroll, you're up next.
Thank you. You know, funnily enough, I anticipated that this would be one of the questions tonight, and I called Tom D today to discuss an idea that I had. And while he didn't outright reject it, what he did say is that the BCRC, and that's a Bennington County Regional Commission, as well as the town of Bennington, have started a project of deciding what they're going to do with the property. And you know, the idea of, you know, having the town going and purchasing that property, you know, that we as a select board considered that, but it would have been a significant burden. And I'll tell you, you know, it very well could have started a bidding war that would have taken it way out of our hands for it. And furthermore, to that end, you know, if we were to have bid and purchased the property, we would have had to bond it, and that would have resulted in an increase in property taxes for the people of Bennington, with no clear plan of what we were going to do with it. And you know, I have to tell you, you know, when it came up for auction, I wish we could have done it, but I'm so glad that the hospital, under the expert guidance of Tom D, is really taking into account, you know, what the possibilities are for it. And I look forward to his reporting to us through the BCRC on what they plan to do. But you should know that the town is in there, and we'll play our part. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Thanks, Jim. Tina Cook, your turn, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So my history is I was an SVC employee and turned student athlete all at the same time. So those are my old stomping grounds. And SVC was popular as a teaching college. So a lot of the staff at the hospital were former SVC alum. So it's the perfect marriage. And I have a relationship with Leslie Keith, who is running some of the vaccinations at the college. So from my Manchester days, we worked on the chamber together, task force. But I would love to see the gym used for activities. You know, it'd be nice to have a professional basketball league, or, you know, and they would be the perfect people to manage all of this because of COVID. You know, they are the experts. They'd be right there and available. We could probably, if people cooperate, see a faster recovery with partnership with the hospital and SVC. So I'm excited about this venture. I'm going to see if there is a way I can help. And I think the town should back it and find out. I mean, the options were what? Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And the final turn for this particular question goes to Gary Corey. Gary Corey, your time starts now.
So I too, along with everybody else, is overjoyed that our hospital has bought that property. When the summer camp came in, it was frightening, I think, for all of us. I live fairly near that campus. I was very involved in the campus. We designed the new dormitory that's there. We've done a lot of work at the campus. And thinking that we would have someone who so carelessly brought 300, 400 kids up here during a pandemic, I think was just unfathomable to many of us. And I was involved in trying with a number of organizations, not with the hospital, but other organizations when we didn't know that the hospital was going to buy it, of figuring out how we might be able to get that piece of property, either by the town, which did not seem viable, with other organizations that might do continued educational facilities there. I think that it's a blessing that the hospital has bought it. I'm not sure what their plans are, but I think a partnership with the town, certainly for recreational use by our community, is really important. I think some, a nursing school, a health spa, something that ties in with the mission of the hospital that happens there, that also benefits us as a town, is, I don't know what it is, but something like that, that may give back to all of us, and that we all get to enjoy for eternity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. We are doing well. In case you're just joining us, you are watching the Bennington Select Board Candidates Forum, brought to you by the Bennington Banner and Cat TV. So glad to have you all with us. I urge everyone to stay for what probably will be our final question before we enter into the final closing statements. And let's begin now. The final question, a little open-ended, but let's see what candidates can do with it. Bennington is blessed with a number of assets, historic, natural, and otherwise. Which assets do you believe are least well exploited, and how do you think they should be best used to improve the quality of life for the town's residents? And this question, for the answer for this question, rather, we'll go first to Colleen Harrington.
Well, I think that we really need to better explore our natural aspects. I think a lot of our things that we could be emphasizing or advertising better to bring more people in. Yes, in the winter we have the ski season, but we need to look at outdoor activities summertime, and ATVs and biking and hiking and all of those outdoor activities. I think we could better market to bring people in. Manchester did an awesome job at marketing their trails and systems and bringing tourists back. A lot of people say tourism is dead here, and I don't think it's dead. I think we just have to revamp how we're doing it to bring business in. And of course, right now with COVID, it's a horrible time for all businesses. But I think especially with viruses, and outdoor activities are the natural way to go, because outdoors you have less spreading of anything, you can distance better, and I just think that's how we're going to have, because Vermont isn't known for anything else. We don't have casinos here. We might be able to bring people in for the marijuana business if they ever get that passed and working properly. But other than that, I think that is very underutilized and could be much better marketed and put out to people to bring people into our state. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Next up is Kevin Hoyt.
And as I can probably guess, my answer is pretty similar to Colleen. I think we got to start with, why do people come to Vermont State? And if you ask your average person, a tourist that comes here, and again, 85% of our income comes from tourism, I think it has something to do with the outside or nature. To hunt, to fish, to hike, to ski, to walk down to see a covered bridge, to snowmobile, to all these wonderful, beautiful outdoor things. And we've never marketed to the outdoors, which is amazing to me. I travel for a living worldwide, but even here in the United States, I have a lot of people that don't know where Vermont is. What state is that in? Or do you accept American currency in Vermont? It's ridiculous. I don't know who's teaching geography, but I think it's as simple as showing people. And the number one thing that I think we can utilize is our government. I think the problem right now is we're broke. We're past broke, and we can no longer keep up with the inflated taxes, with the overspending from these, in my opinion, corrupt leaders. And I've got a lot of backup for that. The problem is there's nowhere for the people to go. Once we find corruption, there's nowhere for the people to turn it into. And even when you get them, these people just claim immunity because they're the ones that write the laws. So the number one thing that I think we can utilize is to simplify our government, to back off on regulations, to back off on taxes, and give the people of Bennington a chance. One of the problems with the medical marijuana, Mr. Carroll was talking about, is adding another 2% tax here in Bennington. They've already taxed the death out of this. So if you want to use this, we have to leave it with the people, right? The people have to remain in control. We can't let big pharma, and we can't let our politicians get a hold of it, because they're going to overtax it. They're just going to feed the black market, and the whole thing's going to blow up in our face. So the number one thing that I think we can utilize here in Bennington is our own government. And again, it comes down to internal affairs and accountability. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Right on time. Nancy White, your turn. Once you unmute, there you go. Thanks.
Hi, I think we very much need to play up the historic history that we have, that Bennington is rich in. I know we seem to be going towards an arts community. Well, it seems that most of the towns are moving towards an arts community, and I think we could do a lot more with the assets we have here to play up the history. I want to go back to the last question on the college. I want to remind everybody, we could not find one person on the select board that would allow us to have a 10-minute conversation about what we'd like to do with the college. I also want to remind people that there is a $6 million price tag on that pie in the sky at the rec center, phase 2, that citizens were totally shut out of talking about. It was all UCS for a gym, a walking track, and 2 pickleball courts. Now, to me, it defied logic, knowing there was a $6 million price tag up there when we could have bought the college for less than that. But again, we weren't even allowed to have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris Bates. Your 2 minutes begins now.
So mine would be twofold. One, definitely, I believe that Bennington is an outdoor hub, and we sit in a really good position close to New York State and to Massachusetts, and we have everything at our fingertips. We have fishing, hunting, camping, kayaking. We have everything. And the other thing is we have a trailhead right here in town going up to the White Rocks. And so, you know, you would think that people would get on board with that and say, the outdoors is the ticket. This is where we want to go. We want to lean toward the outdoors. To me, it's a gold mine, literally a gold mine. And I'm sure there's others in this panel that would believe that. The second part of it is we are rich in history. When I have friends come here, the first thing we do is we go to the monument. We go to the Old First Church. We go see Robert Frost. We go to Robert Frost's house, you know, and we stick right here in Bennington and see all the cool stuff. So, you know, for me, I think Bennington has these 2 great assets. And then somehow, if the select board can really promote it and really get the word out, it will work to our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jim Carroll, you're next.
Thank you. As people may or may not know, I was on the Commerce Committee while I was in Montpelier. And you'd be surprised to know that, that there's been a great deal of money spent on marketing for the state of Vermont. And what I learned is that the three things that people look for when they decide if they want to come to Vermont is they look at the things that draw people are the arts, history, and the outdoors. But the number one reason why people are drawn to Vermont, and you're going to be surprised to hear this, is weddings in the settings for the state of Vermont. And, because of COVID, there's been a real, shortfall there. But those are the things that are the prime movers in getting people to come to the state of Vermont. And, once this pandemic lifts, I think we're going to be able to go back to those things. But those are the important things that we need to reemphasize, and for not only the state, but the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Tina Cook, you're next. Let me just remind what the question is. Bennington is blessed with a number of assets, historic, natural, and otherwise. Which assets do you believe are least well exploited, and how do you think they should be best used to improve the quality of life for the town's residents?
Thank you. So my background is in marketing, and I was tasked with pulling in tourism to Manchester on their internet task force. So what I feel that Bennington offers that the rest of the world doesn't, is that Vermont label. We have so much talent here. People can create the most amazing things that the world would purchase. We could end poverty by creating a marketplace. So those are some of the initiatives that I want to work with. I want to work with the Chamber of Commerce. I would like to see the select board working hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce to work on our messaging and grow our marketing and to draw more people in, but also to take advantage of the resources that are here. So the lightning jar, I have a comprehensive plan that I had written for them at the time before when they were looking for a director. And I would like to introduce that to the select board, present that, and see if we couldn't, get something like that implemented. The state offers all these wonderful grants to help revitalize towns just like us. And I did find the 2012 town report that so many people participated in. It is full of beautiful ideas that we should implement. So we're coming up on, what is that, year 10 since then? So I love the list. It's got contact information, and I intend to reach out and see that some of these ideas are implemented. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Next is Gary Corey. Gary, your turn.
I think that all of our assets are not exploited as much as we can. I think that our arts environment, our museum, our college, our architecture is all could use more exploitation, if you will. I think the chamber is actively doing that. I think they're doing a great job. I think to support them in, Tina, I'm going to steal all your words here, but I think that that's incredibly important for us. I think the one thing that tonight shows us is that one thing that we don't exploit enough is the caring and interested people that we have in Bennington. You've got 10 people trying to vie for 3 positions in the select board. We all have different opinions about the best way to do it, the best way for our town, but we all have opinions, and we're all here stepping up, wanting to help our town. And I think that's the thing that people need to know, is that we all care. We all care about Vermont. We all care about Bennington. We all care. And I think that's the thing that we need, one of the messages that we need to get out, that we should exploit more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next up, And last person to answer this question is Tom Haley. Tom.
Gary, you stole my answer. I really think the most underutilized asset in Bennington is its people. We have some tremendous, imaginative, bright people here in Bennington. And I think the select board could do more to make it easier for these people to bring their ideas forward, to make it easier for people to start businesses they want to start programs they want to start that would benefit the town as a whole. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the incredible work of the social service agencies here in town, who are already going above and beyond, and I think would be willing to do even more in areas of helping our police. I know there are already some efforts being made in that direction. I think we need to keep our foot on the gas pedal in that area and get people out of the criminal pipeline and into the help that they need. But yeah, I mean, the people in Bennington are our greatest asset. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And everyone, that ends the question portion of our forum tonight. And we will wrap it up with.
Excuse me, I didn't get to say anything on this one.
And for that, I apologize.
I didn't get to say anything. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Your turn. I'm sorry.
That's all right. First off, I think we can market Bennington better. I think some of the staff needs to be changed their job descriptions at the town hall. We need to have one person with experience that does marketing for all of Bennington. A few years ago, can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I came up with a slogan, Bennington, Vermont's hometown. I presented to the select board and they didn't want to go that way, but Bennington was the first one chartered in the state way back in, I forgot the date, 17 something. Like some of the other people like Chris Bates and Kevin and Colleen, we have natural beauty, we have fishing, we have hiking, we have everything you would want. We have the state monument, we have covered bridges, we have the history. And yes, like Jim said, we have a beautiful place for weddings over on Jamie Jerome's place, or maybe now with the mansion. But we don't have anybody that concentrates on marketing, and we need to do that. And we can have the other staff worry about if the parks are filled or if the splash park water works or whatever. But this goes back to management and why I want to get on the select board to make sure the select board covers these issues. And they really haven't been. And if we can't grow Bennington's economy, some of the people that have lived here for years, 100 years almost, it seems like some of them have lived here, they're not going to be able to live here in their old age, and they have a right to. They've built up Bennington, they paid their taxes, and I just think if you get new people on this select board, friendlier people, they'll take ideas and implement them and make them work for everybody in Bennington, not just the select few. So thank you.
Thanks. And that was Mike Bethel. I'm sorry I inadvertently skipped over him. So that concludes the answers to our questions. We really plowed through a lot of ground. And the good news is that I think that voters were well served by listening to tonight's forum. And we shall conclude tonight's forum with by offering each candidate a 2-minute closing statement, and hold my feet to the fire if I forget anybody. And I will start the timer with the first person to go forth with their 2-minute closing statement. That person is Kevin Hoyt. Kevin, you want to unmute yourself, and your 2 minutes begin now.
Okay, I'm Kevin Hoyt, again, born and raised Vermonter. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have never imagined myself being here. I'm a deer hunter. I found my dream career a long time ago, but I can no longer afford to live in the state that I love. I feel like our government is out of control. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. My 5 times great-grandfather, Harry, was the first free Hoyt, right? He fought, him and his father, David, were part of that original 3%. On this very soil, these very same rights, very same freedoms. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that we face as Bennington, as Vermont, and as a nation is fair elections. If we do not have fair elections, then nobody is getting in. And I am completely disgusted that we have all this evidence and all of this information to share, but our elected officials refuse to look at it. And that should be everybody's first red flag. I almost didn't participate tonight because I have no more faith in elections. And until we turn around and get a grip on that as a government agency, I think America and Vermont state is lost because no one can trust anybody anymore. The amount of disinformation we're getting off the television and from everyone, from our law enforcement, from our officials, when we get statements from the Bennington Select Board, like, due to the pre-released information about the police that puts the town as a disadvantage, but then they never follow up and tell us what that disadvantage was, there's a problem. When we have serious criminal things happening with our hierarchy in the town and they're not sharing this information, I find it very troubling. So I didn't imagine myself here. I wish someone else was here to do it, but I see no other leadership currently in office. Hats off to everybody that steps into this arena because it's horrible. I can't imagine anybody wanting it. But then again, remember when it didn't used to be just a get rich career. It used to be a community service where you stepped in and you did something for the people and then you got out. That's what I'm about. I'd like to see term limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Hoyt. The next 2-minute closing statement time goes to Nancy White. Nancy, your 2 minutes begin now.
These are the plans for the future of Bennington that were made back in 2012. Unfortunately, most of the 15,000 people in our town don't even know they exist, nor were they allowed in the planning stage. I showed these plans a year ago. For years, I've asked the select board to give us a 15-minute update. The select board has refused. These are the plans that brought us the YMCA takeover. These are the plans that put the UCS building at the rec center rather than our townwide gym. The one thing these plans aren't going to do is turn our economy around. To have that happen, we need new private sector jobs with good pay and benefits. We have paid experts for 40 years to get those jobs to Bennington. They have failed. This is why our town has been dying for 40 years. We can't have $30 million projects in Bennington and not have them create at least 25 new jobs. The backroom deals. I've had it with the Bennington machine deciding they want to block the rest of us from our own town. We should be allowed to be making decisions. I urge people to defeat the budget. It's the only way you're going to get answers in this town. And defeat the options tax. We don't need to get squeezed for $100,000 each year for pennies for parks during this worldwide financial crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We go to the top of the alphabet here for candidates. So next up is Chris Bates. Chris, your turn for closing arguments. You get 2 minutes.
Thank you, Kevin, and the banner again for having us and myself. I'm about the town of Bennington, and there's a couple things on my thought process here, and one of them is the economic development, obviously, for the town of Bennington. And to have that, and being a former legislator, I was able to understand some things about the state of Vermont. And most other states, they're leaning toward, and it is a must, it is an imperative must, we have equality. We have to have equality in economic development so that we cover all the sectors and that everybody is cohesive in this. No one's special, no one's better than someone else, but we need the equality to help our most vulnerable Vermonters, the racial equality, the town equality. We need it all. So for economic development, and if you can get that ball rolling, you'll start to see a little bit more growth. Then the other thing is, one thing that really bothers me is the distressed vacant properties from banks and from big companies. And I'll just use Cumberland Farms. Every time I drive by that old Cumberland Farms building, makes you want to throw up because it shouldn't be there. It should be either rented, knocked down, something. But we are taken advantage of by these companies and by the banks and letting these properties go to crap. And we should not have that. So anyway, I really like your vote. I'd like to make a difference in the town of Bennington. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. Mike Bethel, your 2-minute closing statement begins now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for doing this, Cat TV, and Mike Cutler, and everybody involved in putting this on. I think it's very important that we get new people on the select board. I would like to be one of them. I would like to make sure that if I do get on the board, I will make sure that it's a friendlier board to the people that come in front of them. Even if I disagree with them, I want the people to be heard. It's their right to be heard. We need to lower our taxes. We need to work to bring in business. We need to address the drug problem, which I think now you're going to see, like I said, a new effort by a lot of the different organizations. The grand list has to go up, because when the grand list goes up, your basic taxes will go down. There needs to be more accountability. I don't like the select board when they seem to come up with an idea, they've already talked it over before they've even brought it to the people. When you watch other select boards, they talk about some of this stuff. Not everything should be done backdoor or in the executive session. And as far as the mayor thing goes, I urge people to vote for the mayor. This just opens the charter and gives us an option in the future. And it would also hold Stu Hurd and the select board more accountable, that they have to think there is something over their head. Why do you think they fight so hard? Because they don't want it. They're afraid of it. It's going to ruin their little machine. But if I get on the board, I guarantee you, people are going to I'll make sure that the board is more friendly to everybody that comes in front of them. So thank you. Please vote for the mayor, and please vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Jim Carroll, your 2-minute closing statement begins now.
Thank you, Cat TV and the Bennington Banner. You know, listening to my fellow candidates, and I want to thank them all for running. I want to remind everybody that Bennington is an unfinished product. A lot of the complaints that we've heard tonight and over the years have been perennials. But the thing that I want to underscore is that, you know, all of us here tonight, we all want what's best for the town of Bennington, all of us. There's no argument there. How we get there is, you know, where we stumble. But I want to say that I want the town to continue to grow. There are lots of different ways that we can get there. None of them are simple, because, you know, fundamentally, if there were simple solutions to the problems that Bennington has, we would have done them, wouldn't we? It's not, there are no simple solutions. But I want to continue to work for the people of Bennington. It's been the greatest honor and privilege to work for the people of Bennington. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim Carroll. Tina Cook, your 2-minute closing argument.
Thank you. First, I want to acknowledge the Abenaki tribe and other indigenous tribes, sacred land that we have the pleasure of being on and hosting this event. I'd like to thank Cat TV and the Bennington Banner and you, Mr. Moran. My experiences, and more importantly, my challenges in Bennington, make me uniquely qualified for the position of select person. My history as an internet marketer and growing businesses and growing budgets and being responsible for millions of dollars make me uniquely qualified to help balance the budget and form new revenue generation in the town, and also to partner with a lot of the community members to make all of this work and to take a lot of the burden off of the tax system. So today I ask for your vote, and it has been so much fun. And I thank all my fellow candidates And thank you again. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Tina. Gary Corey, your 2-minute closing argument.
Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Mike, for putting this on and organizing this. I hope through this that my answers have been clear. Sometimes I feel like a cheerleader for Bennington. I've been here for, as I said, 30 years with my business and a lifetime living in this town. I've seen the changes that have happened in our town, and I hear the complaints about things are not happening enough, but I remember when there were no trees on Main Street. I remember when it was a struggle to finance any projects that were happening downtown. And I remember when the traffic was so heavy in downtown that you could not get through in the fall. And from all of that, we have come so far through partnerships, public-private partnerships. We see the Putnam block nearing being finished of that first phase. We see the Southern Vermont College property protected from outsiders. We see in North Bennington, the Writers Retreat nearing completion, Bennington College rebuilding from the fire. We see new breweries right behind my office, the new distillery. We see restaurants preparing to open. I think it's tough right now because COVID has really kicked us hard, but I think it's stalled us, but I don't think it's defeated us. I think my goal as a select board member will be to continue to further partnerships that we have and to develop more partnerships to continue what's happening in Bennington so that people are attracted here. And now that we can work remotely, that they have a choice, that they can live here and really work just about anywhere. I chose Bennington.
Thank you, Gary. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's move next to Tom Haley. Tom, your 2-minute closing argument, or closing statement, sorry.
Tonight we heard a wide range of views on a broad range of subjects. Some I agree with, some I don't, but I know that every candidate here is running because they care about their town, and I thank them. I grew up in Bennington, and I've seen our town change a lot. That's natural, that's normal. Change is necessary for growth. Our current board has made progress over the past years. They've made efforts to become more transparent. That work's not done. They've made efforts to reform our police department to bring it to 21st century methods and values. That work's not done. We've seen townwide improvements in our parks, our infrastructure, and our historic buildings. That work is not done. This work will never be complete. It must be continuous, always with an eye on the future of Bennington. We will never go back to the way things were, and indeed we should not. We must continue to work together to make Bennington a great place to live and work. We must search out ways to serve all of our citizens, to lift up those who need help, always remembering that equity and equality are not the same thing. We must become more diverse because diversity brings strength. We must find ways to ensure that all voices can be heard. We have a drug problem in Bennington. We've got a race problem in Bennington. We have a homeless problem in Bennington. We have an affordable housing problem in Bennington. We have an empty storefront problem in Bennington. I could go on, but I firmly believe that we can tackle any problem if we work together, if we refuse to bury our heads in the sand and meet our challenges head on. Denial does not make a problem go away. I believe in Bennington. I believe in our people. Together, we will move forward to a town that is an example to be followed. I ask for your vote on town meeting day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Haley. And our final candidate with her 2-minute closing statement is Colleen Harrington. Colleen, your 2 minutes.
Well, I can tell you what my vision for Vermont or for Bennington is, and that's that we have accountability, that we can ask questions about spending and have them answered, transparency, And that includes releasing public information, and whether that information reveals misappropriation or not, there should be no public information that's off limits. And I also agree with voting down the budget. I think it's overinflated, and I think there are many areas where we could make reductions. The option tax, I would not vote for that. The only way I would have even considered that is if we had used that money for something with Southern Vermont, but that's off the fence, off the board now. And I'm kind of on the fence about a mayor. And my worst nightmare would be that we would have someone like Stu Hurd in there, and you say we can vote him out, but I don't think we can. I think that there's a system in place, and that it's very driven to get in place the people that they want in place. And with no oversight, we're just lost as we are now. And I think my biggest fear in this is the town itself. They're not addressing some things currently that are really big issues. We have a couple of elected officials, one that I know absolutely for sure, and I think a couple of people on this panel know also, that I don't believe is in his job. And they're hiding that from the public. And I don't know why they would hide that information. And to be honest with you, the Banner was complicit in some of that hiding of the information. And I think we need to have a media that is,
Ellen,
mhm,
that's time.
yeah, figured that would be.
So I do thank you. It was an honest 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. I want to thank you to all of the candidates for participating. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to the Bennington Select Board Candidates Forum, produced in partnership between the Bennington Banner and CAT TV. I'm Kevin Moran, Executive Editor of the Bennington Banner, reminding you on behalf of the Bennington Banner and the folks at CAT TV to go vote on March 2nd. Your vote is your voice. Thank you all. Be safe. Have a good weekend. Be well.